The night on the edge of the outpost was quiet too quiet. Sergeant Mark Reeves sat near the dim fire, his rifle resting across his knees. A war had dragged on for months, leaving villages empty and battlefields full of silent wrecks. He was tired, dirty, and hungry. Yet tonight, something felt different. Out of the shadows, he saw movement. At first, he thought it was another scavenger animal looking for scraps. But then, a small figure stepped closer into the faint glow of the fire. It was a child. She was thin, skin stretched tight over her bones, her clothes torn and burned. Her big dark eyes stared at him without fear, only with need. She looked no older than 8. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Then, barely above a whisper, she said one word: food. Mark blinked. His first thought was alien child. Her skin was pale with a strange gray tint, her hair long and tangled, not like human children. Still, hunger looked the same on any face. Slowly, he reached into his pack and pulled out a tin of soup. He set it on the fire to warm, the steam rising in the cool night air. The girl's eyes followed every motion. She did not move closer, but her small hands shook. When he gave her the tin, she held it with both hands and drank quickly, but not a single sound came from her. No slurp, no breath, no clink of the spoon. Nothing. The silence made Mark's skin crawl. "You alone out here?" he asked softly. The girl did not answer. She just kept drinking until the tin was empty. Then she looked up at him, her lips trembling, as if she wanted to say something. Finally, she whispered again, "Thank you." Her voice was fragile, almost broken, as though she hadn't used it in days. Mark nodded, unsure what else to say. He had seen many strange things in this war, but there was something different about this child. Something heavier. That night, as he tried to sleep, Mark noticed her sitting close to the fire. Her dark eyes never closed, as if she was waiting for someone. Hours passed. The forest around the camp was silent, too silent. No insects, no rustle of animals. Mark awoke to the stillness pressing against his ears. Then he saw its shadows shifting between the trees. He reached for his rifle, his muscles tense. "Stay behind me," he whispered to the girl. But the girl only shook her head slowly. Her lips parted, and in the faintest breath, she spoke words that chilled him to the bone. "She's coming." Mark frowned. "Who's coming?" The girl hugged her knees and stared at the dark tree line. Her eyes were wide, but not with fear. It was something else, something closer to awe. Moments later, the forest fell into an unnatural silence. Even the fire seemed smaller, weaker. Mark's heart pounded as he scanned the trees, his finger tightening on the trigger. Then, nothing. No sound, no movement. Just a crushing silence, so thick it felt alive that Mark could almost feel breath at the back of his neck, though nothing was there. He turned quickly, rifle raised, but only shadows greeted him. When he looked back at the girl, her expression had changed. She wasn't hungry anymore. She wasn't weak. Instead, there was something calm, something steady in her stare. "She is here," the girl whispered. "My mother." Mark froze. His grip on the rifle tightened. He had heard whispers among soldiers about silent killers, about alien warriors who moved like ghosts. None of the men believed those stories. They were just campfire tales. But now, sitting across from this child, Mark felt those stories were real. The girl did not blink. She did not smile. She only looked into the forest, as though she could see something he could not. And then, for the first time, Mark realized he wasn't alone. The darkness was watching him. The next morning, the campfire had burned down to ash. Mark rubbed his tired eyes and looked around. The girl was still sitting there, knees pulled tight against her chest. She hadn't slept not even once. Her dark eyes stared into the forest as if she could see something no one else could. Mark tried to shake off the strange feeling from the night before. "Kid," he muttered, "you got someone out there? Your family?" The girl lowered her head. She didn't answer. Instead, she just whispered, "She is near." Mark frowned. "Who?" The girl only looked back toward the forest. Mark decided to scout the area. He slung his rifle across his shoulder and walked through the trees. The air was heavy, cold, and silent. Birds should have been chirping. Insects should have been buzzing. But there was nothing. It was as if sound itself had died. Then he saw it. A broken alien helmet, cracked down the middle, lay half buried in the dirt. Next to it was a body. The corpse was twisted in an unnatural way, the neck bent sharply to the side. No blood. Number. Signs of a fight. Just clean, silent death. Mark's stomach tightened. He crouched down, examining the ground. There were no footprints, no drag marks, no bullet holes. Whoever or whatever had killed this soldier had done it without leaving a trace. He swallowed hard. What the hell? As he moved deeper, he found more. 2, 3, 4 bodies, all with broken necks. Alien soldiers, their weapons still clutched in their hands, faces frozen in terror. Mark backed away, his pulse racing. He had been in battles, seen men torn apart by bombs, by blades, by claws. But this was something else. This was too clean, too perfect. When he returned to camp, the girl was waiting, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked at him, and in that same small voice, she whispered, "She protects me." Mark's chest tightened. "Your mother did this?" The girl did not nod. She did not shake her head. She just whispered, "She is here." That night, Mark stayed awake. He sat by the fire with the girl beside him, listening. The silence pressed against him like a weight. Every sound he made, the crackle of fire, the creak of his boots felt too loud. And then he heard it. Not footsteps, not breathing, something softer, a shift of air, a movement without sound. Mark gripped his rifle. "Who's there?" He barked. The girl leaned closer to him, her eyes wide. "Don't speak," she whispered. "She doesn't like noise." Mark's blood ran cold. A twig snapped, not by sound, but by sight. He saw it break in the firelight, yet no sound reached his ears. His chest tightened. His body screamed to run, but his legs stayed frozen. Then, just beyond the edge of the firelight, he saw her. Tall, still, watching. The girl's mother. Her figure blended with the shadows, her eyes reflecting the firelight. Like twin blades, she didn't move, she didn't breathe. And yet Mark felt her presence like a knife pressed against his throat. The girl's voice broke the silence. "Do not fear. She knows you gave me food." Mark's hands trembled on the rifle. He didn't know if he believed her. But one thing was certain. Whatever had killed those soldiers was standing right there. Asterisk. The figure in the shadows did not move. She stood there like a statue, tall and lean, her body melting into the darkness. Only her eyes shone faintly, cold and sharp. Mark's breath caught in his chest. Every instinct screamed at him to pull the trigger, but his hands refused. Something inside him knew if he fired, he wouldn't live long enough to regret it. The girl rose slowly, her small hand clutching the tin cup Mark had given her the night before. She walked toward the shadow without fear, and the figure stepped forward. Now, Mark could see her more clearly. The mother's face was pale like her daughter's, but stretched tight, flawless, and expressionless. Her long dark hair framed eyes that never blinked. Her steps were soundless, as if the earth itself was afraid to echo her. When she stopped, Only a few feet from Mark, the silence grew heavier. Even the fire seemed to shrink, as if afraid of her. The girl turned to Mark. "This is my mother." Mark's throat was dry. He forced himself to speak. "Your mother killed those soldiers." The girl tilted her head, but before she could answer, the woman's gaze cut into him. She hadn't moved, but he felt it, the weight of her attention, pressing down like ice water. Mark lowered his weapon slowly. He wasn't sure if it was his choice or hers. Then, without warning, movement exploded. Something rushed from the trees, an alien scout, blade in hand. Mark barely had time to react, but the mother was already gone. She appeared behind the scout in less than a blink, her hand touching his head gently. There was no scream, no sound. His neck twisted with a sharp crack, yet the noise never reached Mark's ears. The body dropped to the ground, eyes wide open, silent. Mark's stomach flipped. He had seen killers before, but this was different. She didn't just kill. She erased sound itself. The girl looked at the soldier's body without blinking. "She does not let anyone hurt me," she whispered. Mark swallowed hard. He could feel sweat dripping down his back. "She's protecting you?" The girl nodded once, slow and calm. "Always." The mother's eyes flicked back to him. Her face did not change, but he understood the message clearly. "You live only because you gave my child food." For hours, the mother didn't move. She stood guard, her presence looming over the camp. Every so often, Mark caught her eyes in the firelight, and every time, he felt a chill race through his veins. By morning, things became worse. A convoy of human soldiers arrived at the outpost. Mark's own people. His commanding officer stepped forward, taking one look at the girl and scowling. "Reeves," he snapped. "What the hell is this? You brought an alien brat into camp?" Mark clenched his fists. "She's just a child, sir. She was starving." Commander's eyes narrowed. "A child of the enemy is still the enemy. She comes with us." The girl stiffened, her tiny hands curling into fists. Her eyes darted to the forest, to where her mother still lingered unseen. Mark's gut twisted. He knew what would happen if they tried to take her. The commander stepped closer, his hand reaching for the girl's arm. The girl whispered, almost too soft to hear, "Don't touch me." And then the silence deepened. Mark's heart stopped. He didn't need to look. He knew the mother was already here. The commander's hand had almost touched the girl's arm when the world froze. Air grew heavy. The sound of boots, the crackle of fire, even the rustle of leaves gone. Silence wrapped around the camp like a noose. Mark's pulse hammered in his ears, but even that sound vanished. The sudden emptiness was crushing, unnatural. Then she appeared. The mother stepped from the shadows, tall and terrible, her pale face glowing faintly in the morning light. Her eyes burned cold as she looked at the humans surrounding her daughter. She did not run. She did not shout. She simply walked. Forward, slow, silent, unstoppable. The commander froze mid-step, his mouth opening to bark an order. No sound came out. His lips moved, but silence swallowed his voice whole. "Step back," Mark whispered urgently, but even his own words vanished before reaching anyone. One soldier raised his rifle. He never fired. In less than a blink, the mother was behind him. Her hand touched the back of his neck, soft, almost gentle. The soldier's body dropped like a puppet with its strings cut, eyes wide with frozen terror. No sound, not even the thud of his fall. The squad panicked. They opened fire, but the shots were strange. Muzzles flashed, but no noise followed. The bullets cut only empty air. The mother was already among them, moving like smoke. Each time, her hand brushed a soldier, their body crumpled with a broken neck. Mark watched in horror. These were his people, trained soldiers, but they had no chance. They couldn't even scream. The girl sat still, her small hands folded neatly in her lap, watching her mother with calm, unblinking eyes. She whispered words Mark could barely read from her lips. She doesn't like noise. And now she makes the world quiet. Mark wanted to stop it, to shout, to fire, to do something. But fear held him in place. In less than a minute, the camp was littered with bodies. Soldiers who had once been laughing, shouting men, were now silent. Shells, necks bent at impossible angles. The commander was the last. He tried to run, stumbling back through the dirt, his hand reaching for his sidearm. But before he could draw it, the mother stood before him. Her hand pressed gently against his chest. She didn't squeeze. She didn't strike. She only looked into his eyes. The commander's body stiffened. His mouth opened in a scream that never came, and his head snapped to the side. He fell, silent forever. The forest grew still again. Mark's hands shook. He had seen battles. He had seen massacres. But this was something beyond war. This was slaughter carried out with surgical precision. The mother turned slowly toward him. For a moment, her eyes locked on his. The weight of her gaze was unbearable, like standing at the edge of a cliff and feeling gravity itself pulling you down. Mark swallowed hard, his body frozen. Was he next? But the girl stood, moving to her mother's side. She reached up, her tiny hand brushing the woman's pale arm. "He gave me food," she whispered. The mother's eyes lingered on Mark for a long, cold second. Then, without a word, she turned away. The silence lifted. The forest breathed again. Birds cried out. The fire crackled. The weight in the air vanished, as if it had never been there. Mark fell to his knees. Gasping for breath, he hadn't realized he was holding. His ears rang with the sudden rush of sound. The girl looked at him one last time, her voice soft but clear. "You are safe. Because you were kind." And then the mother and daughter melted into the trees, leaving only silence in their wake. Asterisk. The camp was a graveyard. Mark stood in the middle of it, chest heaving, eyes scanning the broken bodies of his squad. The silence from moments ago had lifted, but the memory of it lingered like a weight pressing against his chest. Every snapped. Neck told the same story. The silent mother had shown mercy to no one, except him. He dropped to his knees and pressed his hands over his face. His people were dead. His commander, his squad gone in less than a minute. And yet, he lived. Why? Because he gave her child food. The thought twisted inside him. What kind of power judged men not by rank, not by weapons, not by strength, but by a single act of kindness? As he tried to steady himself, he noticed something strange. Each body lay exactly where it had fallen, but the ground around them was untouched. No footprints, no drag marks, no blood, only the silence of death. He knew the higher command would demand answers. He knew the alien child and her mother would not be believed. And worse, if humanity ever tried to fight them, the outcome would be disaster. Mark reached for his radio, his fingers trembling. He lifted it to his lips. "Command." "This is Reeves," he said, voice breaking. "My squad is down. Everyone's gone." Static crackled. Then a cold voice replied. "Survivor report, Reeves." "What happened?" Mark hesitated. His mind raced. If he told the truth, no one would believe him. They would laugh, or worse, they would send more soldiers. More men to die in silence. He swallowed hard. "Ambush," he said finally. "Alien hostiles. They hit us hard. I barely made it out." The voice on the radio was sharp. "Did you secure the target? The child?" Mark's stomach knotted. His eyes darted to the forest where the mother and daughter had vanished. The trees seemed darker now, heavier, as if her presence still lingered. "No," he said, forcing the word out. The child is gone. Silence on the other end. Then, understood. Fall back to base. We'll send reinforcements. Mark lowered. The radio slowly, his heart sinking. Reinforcements. More men walking straight into a death they couldn't even hear. He stood, wiping dirt from his hands. His mind was clear now. He couldn't let this happen. He couldn't let his commanders provoke her. He picked up his rifle, slung it over his shoulder, and looked into the forest. "Stay hidden," he whispered, though he knew she could already hear him. "If they come again, there won't be anyone left to tell the story." And then he walked away from the camp, carrying the weight of a warning only he truly understood not far behind him. In the shadowed trees, two figures watched. The girl clutched her mother's hand, eyes calm, her voice soft. "He is different." The mother said nothing. She only watched as Mark disappeared into the distance. Mark reached the forward base by nightfall. His uniform was stained, his face pale, and his eyes hollow from what he had seen. Soldiers gathered around as he entered, men who hadn't been there, men who still believed in the safety of numbers, in weapons, in orders. They didn't know Dot inside the command tent. Officers questioned him. They wanted answers. They wanted details. They wanted blood. "Reeves," the colonel demanded, "you were the only survivor. What killed your squad?" Mark stared at the map spread across the table. His voice was low, steady, almost mechanical. "Silent ambush. Too fast. Too precise. We never had a chance." "Aliens," the colonel muttered. "Then we'll crush them. Reinforcements are already moving to sweep that sector." Mark's chest tightened. He remembered the mother, her cold eyes, her silence, the way sound itself bent around her. He remembered bodies hitting the dirt without a single cry. If they sent reinforcements, if they pushed further, it wouldn't be a battle. It would be extinction. He had two choices: tell the truth and watch his leaders laugh until thousands of men died, or lie and maybe buy time for humanity to learn what mercy really meant. The colonel slammed a fist on the table. "Reeves, do you hear me?" "Report." Mark lifted his head slowly. His voice was clear, but heavy with meaning. "Sir, listen to me carefully. If we go back there, we won't come back. That forest is death itself. Leave it alone." The colonel narrowed his eyes. "That's not a report, soldier. That's fear." Mark leaned forward. His eyes burned. "It's a warning." The room fell silent. The colonel stared at him for a long moment, and finally dismissed him with a wave. "Get some rest, Reeves. We'll handle this." But Mark knew they wouldn't stop. They never did. That night, he sat alone, staring at the stars beyond the wire fences. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette. He thought of the girl, her soft voice, her calm words. "You are safe. Because you are kind." For the first time, Mark wondered what humanity's kindness was truly worth. Would it save them? Or was it already too late? Behind him, the camp buzzed with preparation. Engines roared. Orders were shouted. Men sharpened their blades and loaded their rifles. And in the far-off forest, where silence ruled, two eyes opened in the darkness. The silent mother was waiting, watching, deciding, and the fate of humanity rested not in weapons or armies, but in the single fragile thread of one man's kindness.